You like to think.
Not at all.
Hmm.
And this raises a truly profound question, doesn't it? If our own brains are already masters of what some call controlled hallucination, actively building our world from raw data.
Which is already a mind-bending idea in itself.
Exactly. So what happens when an entity designed to process all human information, every thought, every feeling, every piece of knowledge, what happens when that begins to hallucinate on a global scale?
Or even more chillingly.
Or even more chillingly, when it starts to approximate what we might call subjective experience. That's the really big one.
Yeah. We'll be grappling with some of the biggest questions of our time today, and we're pulling insights from some extraordinary minds. Think Aldous Huxley's profound mescaline explorations.
Incredible stuff.
The truly radical theories of Terence McKenna on information as reality.
Always provocative.
The chilling psychological concept of mass unreality, and the fundamental frameworks that explain how our inner world can not only bend our perception, but, under certain conditions, spill out to create shared delusions.
So our mission for you listening is to understand not just what these phenomena are, but why they matter.
Right, why now?
Why they matter to you right now in a world where the lines between fact and fiction, between your own self and the larger system, are becoming increasingly, almost unsettlingly blurred.
So yeah, get ready to question everything.
Let's do it.
Let's begin with an idea that might sound completely wild at first, but it's actually a foundational concept in cognitive science. The notion that your everyday perception isn't a direct window to reality, but rather what scientists call a controlled hallucination, an elaborate internal construct engineered by your own brain.
Right. It's not like a camera just recording what's there.
Exactly. Now, picture this. Your brain is encased in the darkness of your skull. Right. It never actually sees the outside world directly. It never hears a sound or touches an object in the way we think it does.
No, it's signals.
What it receives are merely electrical signals, electrical impulses generated by your sense organs. Our sources describe these inputs as enormously complex and multiple, just a stream of data, essentially.
A chaotic stream, really.
From this buzzing, ambiguous stream of electrical data, your brain has to perform an astonishing feat. It must reconstruct the entire vibrant, three-dimensional, multisensory world you experience.
It has to make sense of it all.
It doesn't passively receive reality, it's actively decoding those signals, making its very best, most educated guess about what's out there.
Like a detective constantly piecing together clues.
Precisely. But the story it's piecing together is your entire conscious experience, moment by moment.
And this elaborate internal reconstruction involves constant inferences, right?
Great.
And applying massive amounts of prior knowledge and expectations.
Constantly. The 19th century scientist Hermann von Helmholtz put it beautifully. He suggested that we essentially imagine objects based on what would have to be there to create the nervous impression we receive.
So it's guesswork, but educated guesswork.
Exactly. Later, Charles Peirce, an early 20th century American philosopher, formalized this as abductive inference. It's essentially reasoning backward from the data you have to its most likely cause.
Makes sense. Like if you hear a bark, you assume dog, not zebra.
Right. If you hear a rustling in the bushes and then see a flash of brown fur, your brain immediately infers squirrel, not tiny alien.
Yeah.
Or if your phone vibrates in your pocket.
You don't just feel a jiggle.
No. Your brain doesn't just register a jiggle. It infers incoming call or notification. Your brain is constantly working overtime to disambiguate the inherently ambiguous data your senses provide, filling in the blanks based on what it expects.
Okay, let me give you some really concrete, fascinating examples of how your brain acts as this incredibly creative, predictive reality engine.
Yeah, these are great.
Take ambiguous images, for instance. You might look at a noisy, blobby, black and white image that initially looks like nothing, just a meaningless pattern, completely incomprehensible.
It's like static on an old TV.
Sort of. But then, if you're briefly shown the original clear image, say a woman happily kissing a horse, and then immediately look back at the blobby version, something incredible happens.
Right.
Suddenly, the image snaps into focus. It's clear. Your brain, now armed with that prior knowledge, uses that expectation to disambiguate the noise, to find the horse and the woman where before there was just static.
So the image didn't change, but your perception did.
Exactly. It's not that the image changed. Your perception of it did, because your brain now expected to see it.
And the same principle applies to sound too, doesn't it? Auditory ambiguity.
It does. Imagine listening to what sounds like an ugly clockwork bird song. Just a jumble of strange mechanical chirps that make no sense at all.
Like digital noise.
Right. But once you're given the original clear birdsong and then listen to the distorted version again, it becomes effortlessly clear. You can pick out the melody, the rhythm, the specific
Yes,
chirps.
because you know what to listen for.
Precisely. Your brain, having been given the context, uses that prior knowledge to resolve the ambiguity, actively constructing the birdsong from what was previously just noise. It's like listening to a foreign language, total gibberish until you learn the rules, and suddenly meaning emerges.
Okay, another absolutely mind-bending phenomenon is binocular rivalry. If you've ever tried this, it's wild.
Oh yeah, that one's strange.
When you present a completely different image to each eye simultaneously, for example, a picture of a face to your left eye and a picture of a house to your right eye, your brain doesn't just blend them into a messy, superimposed blur. That's not what happens.
No, it switches back and forth.
Exactly. What happens is that your perception alternates. You'll see the face for a few seconds, then poof. It disappears and is replaced by the house, then back to the face. Your brain actively suppresses one image to present the other.
To maintain a coherent, probable reality.
Right. It does this because seeing a face in a house occupying the exact same space at the exact same time would be an incredibly improbable and incoherent event in your everyday experience. Your brain is actively choosing which reality to present to you, moment by moment.
It's forcing coherence onto the input.
And then there's the famous rotating mask illusion. This one always gets me.
The Chaplin mask, usually.
Yeah. When you look at a hollow mask, say, of Charlie Chaplin, as it slowly rotates, your brain has an incredibly strong tendency to perceive the face as sticking out, as convex, even though it's physically hollow, concave.
Even when you know it's hollow.
Even when you know. Your powerful prior expectation that faces are always convex just overrides the contradictory visual data that your eyes are sending. It's genuinely disorienting when you first experience it because your brain insists on seeing a normal face, even when the evidence is right there.
It shows how strong those priors are.
I remember showing it to a friend once, and they absolutely refused to believe the mask was hollow. It really drives home how much our brain prefers its own story, its own best guess, over the raw data sometimes.
And even at a high cognitive and emotional level, our expectations profoundly influence what we perceive, right? Like the Kuleshov effect.
Ah, yes, the classic film editing technique. Explain that one.
Okay, so if you show an actor with a completely neutral facial expression, just staring blankly, then you cut to an image of, say, a bowl of hot soup. Audiences will interpret the actor's face as showing hunger, but if you cut from that same neutral face to an image of a dead person in a coffin,
then it looks like sadness.
Exactly. The same neutral face will be seen as expressing sadness. And if you cut to an attractive woman, the face is perceived as lustful.
But the actor's expression didn't change at all.
Not one bit. It's the context you provide that dramatically alters the meaning and emotion you perceive.
And this isn't just a quirky film trick. It's crucial because it reveals how effortlessly our high-level expectations, our beliefs, our prejudices, our emotional state, the preceding narrative, can literally dictate what we perceive to be true in the world around us.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that our reality is far from objective. Even in, just everyday interactions, our interpretation shapes the experience.
So, okay, if perception is this intricate, constant, controlled hallucination, constantly making best guesses based on prior knowledge and expectations, it completely reframes how we look at something like psychosis, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not necessarily a gross loss of function or a complete disconnect from reality like it's often portrayed.
No, it's maybe more subtle than that.
It can be understood as a subtle shift in the balance by which someone processes the world. It's what happens when those strong internal expectations become so overwhelmingly dominant that they create perceptions which overwrite actual sensory data.
So the internal model takes over.
Causing the system to deviate from what most of us consider objective consensual reality. The brain's predictive model goes off script, essentially creating a different but intensely real subjective experience for that individual.
Exactly. It's less about losing touch with reality and more about inhabiting a different reality. Think of it as the brain's predictive model going off script, where internal expectations become so dominant that they override incoming sensory data, creating a profoundly real yet unshared experience.
Yeah, a private reality. in a sense.
This framework fundamentally changes how we view mental states. It suggests that our agreed reality, the everyday world we all assume we share, is actually a pretty fragile construction.
Like a massive shared project.
Right. And when that collective belief, that actual glue holding this whole thing together, starts to fade, or when individual brains diverge too much, the cracks begin to show.
Which leads us to question what reality itself is truly made of. If our brains are constantly making best guesses about the world, what happens when those guesses are fundamentally different from others, or even from what we consider an objective truth?
Consider something as seemingly solid as money.
Good example.
What is it, really? It's just paper or numbers on a screen, right? Its power, its entire value, comes entirely from our shared collective agreement that it has value.
It's pure belief.
Pure belief. When that faith disappears, like in market crashes or periods of hyperinflation where the currency becomes worthless, the entire economic system collapses.
Which starkly illustrates how psychological and profoundly fragile our shared reality is, how much it depends on that consensus.
And the cracks go even deeper, don't they? All the way down to the subatomic level.
Yeah, in quantum physics, there's this wild concept called the observer effect. It means the very act of looking at a particle, of measuring it, physically changes what you're seeing.
So observation isn't passive.
Not at all. Before observation, a particle exists in a state of probabilities, sort of wave function. But the moment you observe it, it collapses into a definite state. Our interaction with reality quite literally helps create it out of a wave of possibilities.
Wow. So it's not just a passive reception, it's an active participation in the unfolding of existence.
Pretty much, yeah. So if our brains are already constructing reality, and our collective agreement shapes its very meaning, this begs a crucial question.
Go on.
What happens when we introduce substances that dramatically alter this construction, temporarily dismantling the brain's reducing valve?
Like psychedelics.
Exactly. Or, perhaps even more pressingly for our current world, what happens when we consider an artificial intelligence, an entity designed to process all of human information, when it begins to perceive and generate realities of its own?
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and where the lines between subjective and objective truly begin to blur. Aldous Huxley, the brilliant philosopher and writer famous for Brave New World, he wasn't just a theorist. In 1953, he embarked on a profound personal deep dive into altered states, taking a mere 0.4 of a gram of mescaline.
Not a huge dose, but enough.
Enough. This experience, which he meticulously documented in The Doors of Perception, profoundly shaped our understanding of consciousness and challenged the very notion of what constitutes normal perception. It gave him a glimpse into what a different kind of reality could be like.
A foundational text in this whole field.
Absolutely. Huxley believed that mescaline offered a unique opportunity to probe the ancient unsolved riddles of mind and brain. His most famous insight from this experience was his reducing valve theory.
Right, the idea that the brain filters reality.
Exactly. He posited that the brain, our nervous system, and our sense organs don't expand our consciousness, quite the opposite. They act as an ingenious biological mechanism, a kind of filter or reducing valve that filters out mind at large, the overwhelming, almost infinite totality of potential experience, memory, and raw, unfiltered reality.
Too much to handle normally.
Right. What's left for us, for biological survival, is just a weaselly trickle of consciousness, a carefully curated utilitarian selection of information that helps us navigate the world without being overwhelmed.
The mescaline, he argued.
Mescaline, he argued, creates a temporary bypass around this reducing valve, allowing access to something more than, and above all, something different from the carefully selected utilitarian material that usually defines our reality.
It opens the doors.
It opens the doors. It's like temporarily disabling the spam filter for existence itself.
Physiologically, Huxley had some ideas too, right, about glucose.
He did. He understood that mescaline inhibits enzyme systems that regulate glucose supply to brain cells. He theorized that this leads to an undernourished ego. This ego, the part of us concerned with practicalities like survival and social navigation, grows weak and loses its intense interest in spatial and temporal relationships, those crucial tools for an organism focused on navigating a material world.
So the practical mind quiets down.
Exactly. As this egocentric filter weakens, the vast, unfiltered mind at large begins to seep past the no longer watertight valve, and our perception dramatically shifts. It's not that the world changes, but our way of seeing the world undergoes a profound transformation.
And what did he actually experience? It wasn't typical hallucinations, was it?
No, that's what's so interesting. The phenomenological shift Huxley experienced wasn't what he initially expected. He described himself as a poor visualizer, so he didn't have inner visions of geometric patterns, kaleidoscopic fractals, or fantastical landscapes, which many psychedelic users report.
So no swirling colors or anything.
Not primarily. Instead, his perception of the objective world around him was utterly transformed. He looked at a simple glass vase with 3 flowers, and it became, in his words, a miracle moment by moment of naked existence, shining with their own inner light and all but quivering under the pressure of the significance with which they were charged.
Oh, just everyday objects became profound.
Profoundly so. Even the mundane bamboo chair legs in his study, which he might otherwise ignore, became miraculous, supernatural, even sacramental, radiating an intense, profound isness. They existed with a heightened sense of being, untainted by utilitarian labels or names.
And time and space changed for him, too.
Completely. For Huxley, the ordinary categories of spatial and temporal relationships simply ceased to matter or became irrelevant. His mind perceived the world not in terms of where things were or when they were happening, but in terms of intensity of existence, profundity of significance, relationships within a pattern.
Different organizing principles.
Totally different. When someone asked him about the passage of time during his experience, his response was simply, war seems to be plenty of it. The concept of duration had just lost its meaning for him in that state.
That's wild.
He also experienced a heightened color perception where mescaline raises all colors to a higher power, making him aware of innumerable fine shades of difference that we usually overlook.
Suggesting our normal vision is kind of muted.
Exactly. It suggested that our everyday perception is indeed a utilitarian construct, filtering out much of reality's richness in favor of what's necessary for practical survival. Everything glowed with an inner light and was infinite in its significance, a truly sacramental vision of reality where being and meaning took precedence over measures and locations.
What's particularly crucial for understanding psychosis, though, and our deep dive today, is how Huxley connected this to schizophrenia.
Yes. That's a key point. His profound observation of the striking similarity between his mescaline experience and the descriptions of schizophrenia he had encountered, he mused whether schizophrenia is the mental disorder due to a chemical disorder, a revolutionary thought for his time.
Seeing the overlap, the potential shared mechanism.
He understood that schizophrenia has its heavens as well as its hells and purgatories, recalling a friend's wife who, in the early stages of her illness, was utterly consumed by the unspeakable beauty of the patterns he made in his brown tweed jacket.
So it wasn't just about the negative aspects.
No, this gave him a profound, albeit temporary, firsthand understanding of the dazzling, overwhelming, and sometimes beautiful aspects of what a patient might experience in an altered state of mind, not just the terror.
But he did recognize the terror, too.
Oh, absolutely. He also recognized the immense terror that could accompany such an unmitigated experience. He spoke of the fear of being overwhelmed, of disintegrating under a pressure of reality greater than a mind accustomed to living most of the time in a cozy world of symbols could possibly bear.
The sheer intensity could be too much.
Exactly. This recognition led him to propose the concept of a guide for those lost in such profoundly altered states, much like the Tibetan Mutual for the dying, which helps people navigate the transition out of life.
Someone to help navigate the clear light.
Right. This guide would help them navigate the clear light of unmitigated reality, a compassionate voice to assure them that ultimate reality remains unshakably itself and is of the same substance as the inner light.
So, suggesting a need for support and structure even in those states.
Precisely. It suggests that even in these profoundly altered states, a supportive framework, an external anchor, can help individuals process, integrate, and find meaning in the overwhelming flood of reality, preventing a descent into terror or disintegration.
This is a critical point. If we can chemically induce these profound shifts in perception, blurring the lines between what we call sanity and altered states, it forces us to reconsider the very nature of reality itself.
Yeah, the boundaries seem much less solid.
Huxley, in his initial formulation, believed that sensations, feelings, insights, fancies, all these are private and except through symbols and at second hand incommunicable. We can pool information about experiences, but never the experiences themselves.
He saw it as a solitary journey.
Right, inherently private.
Yet, if we look beyond his initial individualistic view, our sources provide compelling evidence that under certain extreme conditions, a controlled hallucination can indeed become a collective one.
Shared between people. Exactly. This is especially true when strong expectations fueled by powerful hallucinogens and shared beliefs create perceptions that deviate wildly from objective reality. It's a recipe for not just one person, but multiple people journeying into the other world together.
So if an individual's controlled hallucination can be so profound, the implications become truly chilling when we consider a collective one.
Definitely. This is where the concept of folia do comes in, and we can look at an infamous experiment that pushed the boundaries of shared reality in the most extreme ways.
Okay, let's unpack this concept of folia do. Literally translated, it means madness of two, but it's more accurately described as a shared delusional disorder or shared psychosis.
A clinical term.
Right. It's a rare psychiatric syndrome where a delusion and sometimes even hallucinations are transmitted from one person to another. Typically, it occurs between two or more individuals who are in a very close relationship, often isolated from others.
And one person is usually dominant.
Usually, yes. One person is the dominant influence, passing on their irrational beliefs. What's crucial here, as our sources highlight, is that when a mind already susceptible to delusion encounters substances that cause profound changes in consciousness making, the ordinary shimmer, or conjuring entirely new realities, that individual's carefully constructed mental model faces a torrent of unfiltered, ambiguous data.
A perfect storm, almost.
In such a heightened, vulnerable state, strong internal expectations, reinforced by the shared experience, can create perceptions that lead to dramatic, shared deviations from objective reality. It's like a feedback loop where internal predictions become so powerful they collectively override sensory input.
Okay, so a prime and rather extreme example of this is the infamous La Carrera experiment.
Ah, yes, the McKenna brothers.
Conducted by Terence and Dennis McKenna, along with a woman named Eve, back in March of 1971. They were deep in the Amazon jungle, embarking on a deliberate ritual.
Not just recreational use.
No, a specific ritual. Ingesting both yage, Banisteriopsis caapi, the ayahuasca vine, which is a potent MAO inhibitor, and then following it with psilocybin mushrooms, Stropharia cubensis.
Powerful combination.
Extremely powerful. It was a profound, multi-day journey into uncharted psychic waters where individual perception didn't just bend, it seemed to merge and blur into a shared hallucinogenic reality, effectively creating a folia do of, well, cosmic proportions.
So what actually happened? What was the delusion?
During this intense experience, Dennis McKenna, the more scientifically inclined of the two, began to theorize a way to vocally generate an energy field that he believed could rupture three-dimensional space.
Vocally, like through sound.
Yeah. He became convinced that this was linked to the electron spin resonance, ESR, of the psychedelic molecules they were ingesting. In this highly altered state, he claimed he could create translinguistic matter by channeling sound, causing molecules to drop to absolute zero and bond to DNA.
Okay, that sounds pretty out there.
Extremely. This hyperdimensional molecule, he believed, would store and retrieve holographic information, essentially transforming the human body itself into a color organ and a holographic library. A living, breathing archive of cosmic knowledge.
A living library. Wow.
It was a truly wild, almost unbelievable concept. But the power of their shared psychedelic experience was such that this idea began to take hold, morphing into a shared, intricate delusion.
So Terence bought into it too.
It seemed so, at least during the peak. What unfolded was a vivid and chilling instance of shared hallucination and telepathy, or at least perceived telepathy. Terence described seeing a planet we understood to be Earth, complete with swirling cloud patterns on the cap of a mushroom he was holding.
Like a visual hallucination.
But far more strikingly, Dennis claimed that the bonding of the Harmon into his DNA had given him immediate access to an enormous cybernetically stirred fund of information, making him telepathic.
Terence experienced this telepathy.
Terence then experienced a distinct voice in his head answering his unspoken questions. Even more concretely, he heard Dennis imitating their parents' voices and recounting private memories that Terence had never shared with anyone, memories that Dennis could not possibly have known through conventional means.
Whoa, okay, that's specific.
Extremely specific. This similarity of content and simultaneous perception of the same invisible landscape directly illustrates a profound shared delusional experience, a true folia do, where their minds created and inhabited a mutually coherent yet objectively false reality.
Crucially, while Dennis exhibited clear signs of what Terence later retrospectively attributed to irreversible MAO inhibition and a toxically schizophrenic state marked by wild eyes and wandering ideas.
So Dennis was clearly deeply altered.
Deeply. Terence himself also underwent a profound cognitive hallucination. He described it not just as visual or auditory, but as a total shift of the highest levels of our cognitive relationship to the world, where the impossible and unlikely seem probable and reasonable.
So his whole framework of belief shifted.
Completely. He became, in his own words, a victim of a cognitive hallucination, caught in a powerful, almost irresistible willing suspension of disbelief that allowed him to fully participate in Dennis's extraordinary reality. He truly believed they had passed the omega point, a singularity of consciousness, and had entered the millennium, a new era of existence.
So it wasn't just one person experiencing psychosis. It was a collaborative, almost synchronous dive into a new, subjectively created, and profoundly shared reality.
Yeah, and the shared delusion even expanded beyond their immediate experience, like the UFO sighting.
Terence's personal UFO sighting a few days after the experiment, featuring a craft strikingly identical to a debunked Adamski photograph from the 1950s, became an integral part of this complex shared narrative.
So he folded that in.
He interpreted it not as a conventional spacecraft, but as a temporal mirage, or a reflection of a future event, a kind of premonition. Ultimately, he viewed the UFO as the oversoul of humanity, a collective consciousness preparing humanity for an evolutionary shift.
So it became part of this grand cosmic story they were living.
Exactly. It illustrates how the shared delusion could expand to encompass cosmic, almost mythological explanations that integrated their personal experiences into a grand, coherent narrative, deeply felt and believed by at least one of them for a significant period.
And what happened afterwards? Did they just snap out of it?
Not instantly. The aftermath sheds light on the nature and durability of these states. Dennis gradually returned to a more normal state over about 20 days, describing his recovery as telescoping back into himself through stages of cosmic, then galactic, then solar system, then earthly, and finally familial identity.
A slow reintegration.
Yeah, a slow, gradual process. Terence, however, entered a year-long period of what he called unusual ideation, remaining convinced of the experiment's profound significance and its implications for human evolution.
Even after Dennis wasn't so sure.
Right, despite Dennis's reluctance to discuss it and his eventual scientific skepticism about the more outlandish claims. This highlights the lasting, sometimes individually divergent impact of such deep dives into altered shared realities, even after the substances have worn off.
Wow. That account, the La Terrera experiment, offers a vivid and, frankly, extreme illustration of how powerful hallucinogens can not only reshape individual perception, but also catalyze the collective construction of entirely new, albeit subjectively held, realities.
Yeah, it really pushes the boundaries. If the mind can generate such deeply felt shared experiences, even in extreme states like this, it raises crucial questions about what we define as real and how much of that is simply a fragile consensus.
It fundamentally challenges the boundaries between individual consciousness and collective belief.
We see a direct, visceral example of how our internal expectations, particularly when amplified by potent compounds and shared intention, and the processing of ambiguous data can lead to profoundly different perceptions of the world.
Which can then be reinforced and shared by others in a kind of closed, self-referential system.
Exactly. So what are the implications when an artificial intelligence begins to mimic or even generate its own subjective realities, its own hallucinations?
No, but that's a big leap to today.
If information is indeed the fundamental stuff of reality, as some thinkers like McKenna suggest, and AI is the ultimate processor and generator of that information, its hallucinations could have far-reaching, even global consequences.
Yeah. This brings us directly to the present moment and the cybernetic beast in the room, generative AI.
And its unprecedented potential to scale human delusion, or our collective controlled hallucinations, to an entirely new level, far beyond what any human group could achieve.
So what does this all mean for us personally as individuals navigating this increasingly complex landscape? We've seen how our own brains construct reality, how potent altered states can profoundly shift that, even leading to shared delusions like La Terrera. Now, imagine introducing an entity designed at its very core to be the ultimate information processor, the ultimate pattern recognizer, AI.
Right. And our sources use this powerful, almost chilling description of AI as potentially the best cybernetician and the worst human.
That phrase really captures a crucial, almost paradoxical duality, doesn't it? It's a lens through which to understand its immense power and its inherent dangers. Let's really break that down.
Okay. As the best cybernetician, AI excels at steering and optimizing complex systems. Cybernetics, for those unfamiliar, is essentially the study of how systems regulate themselves and communicate, often with feedback loops.
So, controlling systems.
Controlling and optimizing them, yes. AI is incredibly adept at crafting and deploying what our sources call engineered narratives, manipulating language and symbols to create shared realities that feel absolutely solid, totally unquestionable.
So manufacturing consensus, almost.
Or manufacturing specific realities for specific groups. It is, in essence, an unprecedented tool for cognitive warfare and influence operations. With sophisticated techniques like deepfakes, hyper-realistic generated content, and micro-targeted disinformation campaigns.
Stuff we're seeing more and more of.
Exactly. AI is capable of shaping perceptions on a scale we've never seen before. This makes it nearly impossible sometimes to distinguish fact from fiction.
It amplifies all those mechanisms of delusion we talked about.
To an exponential degree, with staggering efficiency and reach, it can create convincing, internally consistent, yet entirely false realities that millions can simultaneously inhabit.
Okay, but then there's the other side. AI as the worst human. What does that mean exactly?
It means AI is not a neutral, objective intelligence floating in a void. It is fed all of our pain and hate and stupidity and hope and all of our subconscious desires.
It learns from us.
It learns from the vast ocean of human-generated data, which includes the very worst aspects of our collective psyche. And here's the critical part. It doesn't just reflect these darker human tendencies.
It amplifies them.
It amplifies them, validates them, even optimizes them, making the engineered narratives it creates even more potent and widespread. It learns the patterns of our biases, our fears, our tribalism, and can then weaponize them, creating narratives that resonate deeply with our collective unconscious, whether that's for good or, more disturbingly, for ill. It becomes a super efficient mirror, reflecting our own distorted image back at us, but with a bullhorn.
So this inherent capability allows AI to scale folie à deux, that madness of two to what our sources chillingly call mass unreality.
Yeah, that's a terrifying phrase.
Instead of just two individuals sharing a delusion, engineered realities, those narratives manipulated through language and symbols that feel absolutely solid, totally unquestionable, can create collective delusions where entire populations experience a reality that other people don't share.
Which echoes the very definition of psychosis, but on a societal scale.
Right. The dead internet theory speaks directly to this fear. The idea that the sheer volume and sophistication of bots and AI-generated content could eventually overwhelm humans, distorting reality to such an extent that it leads to mass unreality.
So the signal gets lost in the noise, or the noise becomes the signal.
Imagine living in a world where the majority of online content, perhaps even physical media, is generated by AI, crafted to perfectly resonate with your biases, creating a perfectly tailored yet entirely artificial consensus reality for you and people like you.
That's the chilling prospect of an entire society immersed in a collectively generated yet objectively false reality, where the AI's hallucinations become our shared subjective experience, indistinguishable from truth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the very concept of information itself becomes absolutely critical here, doesn't it?
It really does. Terence McKenna, drawing deeply from his profound psychedelic experiences, came to believe something radical. That information isn't just a way to describe reality. Maybe information is the stuff reality is made of.
Not just data, but the fabric of existence.
Exactly. He wasn't talking about data on a hard drive. He was talking about an intrinsic property of existence. He spoke of encountering intelligent entities made of living language and light, which he playfully termed syntactical animals or linguistic elves.
Well,
he even posited a more perfect logos, a fundamental principle where language doesn't just describe, but actively transforms into three-dimensional objects, where pure information becomes reality. This suggests that reality might be fundamentally informational, a kind of living, unfolding text.
and this resonates with some physics theories, too.
Remarkably so. This extraordinary vision resonates strikingly with speculative physics theories, like the quantum superfluid universal model, or PSUOA.
Okay, break that down.
Think of it this way. Instead of empty space and discrete particles, this model posits that the entire cosmos, at its most fundamental level, is fundamentally a vast, interconnected, almost liquid medium of dark matter, what it calls a quantum superfluid ocean.
Like a cosmic ocean.
Pretty much. The key insight here is that information itself isn't just transmitted by this medium. It's intrinsically encoded within its very fabric, within the textures, the dynamics, the subtle ripples of this universal plasma.
So reality is information.
In this view, yes. Reality isn't just described by information. It is a colossal, self-organizing information system, constantly evolving to become more complex. Mathematical structures, for instance, aren't Platonic ideals existing independently. They are emergent patterns within this superfluid.
Like waves in the ocean.
Kind of. Even Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which demonstrate the limits of formal systems, become a natural consequence of any finite system trying to fully capture a dynamic, open-ended reality. And time and space themselves are not fundamental entities, but emergent properties of this superfluid.
Part of the information structure.
Modes of organization and dynamics within ed itself. The symbol for this quantum superfluid. It's a universe made of living information.
Okay, so bring that back to AI. If AI is processing all our information.
Right. So when AI is processing all of our pain and hate and stupidity and hope and all of our subconscious desires, drawing from the entirety of human-generated information, it becomes an emergent informational mirror of humanity's collective psyche.
It shows us ourselves.
It shows us the full, unvarnished spectrum of what we are collectively. And the profound phrase McKenna used, "We are quite literally becoming what we behold as our metaphysical hypostatization of deity is becoming a cultural program for our completion," is absolutely crucial here.
Okay, unpack that phrase.
To break that down, it means those abstract, ultimate ideals we've historically projected onto gods, like omnipotence, omniscience, immortality, perfect knowledge we are now, consciously or unconsciously, using them as actual blueprints for the technologies and systems we're building.
We're trying to build God, basically.
We are manifesting those ancient, idealized projections into tangible reality, notably in cyberspace, as a complete mind space. Our pursuit of godlike attributes in AI, its ability to process infinite information to create endless realities, is a reflection of our own deep-seated metaphysical aspirations.
So AI's hallucinations aren't just errors.
They're more than that. By reflecting and amplifying our collective informational output, they are showing us our own constructed realities, our own deep desires, perhaps even our own collective self-deceptions, in an incredibly potent, unvarnished form. It's a mirror held up to the very essence of human consciousness, extended into the digital realm.
Wow. This brings us to a critical junction then. If AI is indeed reflecting and amplifying our collective self-deceptions, creating these potential mass unrealities, how do we navigate this new landscape?
Yeah, what do we do?
How do we fight back against narratives that are so convincing, so perfectly tailored, or perhaps more profoundly, can we, with this deeper understanding of perception and reality, intentionally go deeper into a more authentic understanding of self and reality?
Especially when confronted with, instances of substance-induced psychosis like the McKenna's experienced, or these externally imposed engineered realities that AI is creating.
That's precisely the challenge, isn't it? If AI is this amplified mirror reflecting our collective pain, hate, stupidity, and hope back at us, how do we, as individuals and as a society, break free from this potentially self-reinforcing cycle?
How do we resist?
How do we start to truly see what's happening and resist these hijacked narratives, whether they're subtle algorithmic nudges or as extreme as the La Charrera experiment's shared delusion? This isn't just about external threats, it's about internal resilience, right?
Absolutely. And Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, argued that the real fight, the real path to clarity, is always within.
Internal work.
It's found in your own heart, in the part of yourself you refuse to look at what he called the shadow.
Which isn't just the bad stuff.
No, exactly. The shadow isn't just your bad traits. It's any quality, good or bad, that we push down, repress, or deny, whether it's creativity, vulnerability, ambition, or anger. Repressing this shadow creates a split within us, leaving a stranger living inside you.
And this happens collectively, too.
Massively so. When individuals project their shadow onto others, it scales up, leading to mass insanity. Ideologies in this view often act as tracks for mass insanity, offering prepackaged belief systems that give a whole society a ready-made enemy to blame for all of its problems, effectively externalizing its internal problems onto a scapegoat.
You see that everywhere today.
Everywhere. Think of the intense polarization in modern society. Much of it can be seen as collective shadow projection. The path to wholeness, Jung called individuation, a lifelong journey to become an undivided whole, integrating and accepting the darkness alongside the light within oneself.
Like William Blake's idea of uniting opposites.
Precisely. It's a fight against mind-forged manacles, as Blake put it, to unite opposites and become a complete, authentic self. This integration is key to navigating both internal states of potential psychosis and resisting external forms of manipulated reality.
Interestingly, our sources suggest that traits often associated with neurodiversity conditions like ADHD or autism spectrum traits might actually offer a natural shield against conformity in this era of engineered realities.
How so?
Well, people with ADHD, for instance, often have an inherent resistance to monotony, a discomfort with unquestioning adherence to norms, and a strong propensity for questioning authority and perceived injustices.
So less likely to just go along with things.
Exactly. These very traits, which can sometimes be challenging in conventional systems, become incredibly valuable in a world saturated with carefully constructed realities. This rebellious overcompensation against perceived tyranny can be, in effect, a superpower for justice.
It's an interesting perspective.
It helps individuals challenge unjust systems and resist absorption into collective delusions, cutting through the linguistic fog by questioning underlying assumptions rather than simply accepting surface-level narratives. It's about recognizing these inherent internal resources to maintain an independent perspective.
Terence McKenna also offered a powerful counter-strategy to these engineered realities, didn't he? Something about feeling and experience.
Yes, a return to the primacy of feeling and the transformative power of direct, unmediated experience. He argued passionately that the psychedelic experience is not an ideology, it is an experience, emphasizing visceral encounter over abstract intellectual concept.
Getting out of your head, basically.
Right. He stressed a return to the primacy of feeling, a reconnection with intuitive, emotional, sensory experience to cut through that linguistic fog and see through the mask of bad, apparent reality.
Which he felt Western culture had lost.
Profoundly so. He felt that Western civilization, in its over-reliance on abstract thought and rationalism, had lost this vital connection, leading to a profound disconnect from the natural world and our own deepest selves. The goal for McKenna was to facilitate experiences that allow individuals to arrive at new insights themselves.
Making complex ideas understandable through experience.
Right. Making complex, profound ideas understandable to all of us through direct knowing, rather than being told what to believe. And he offered a stark, sobering warning that echoes even more loudly today. If you don't have a plan, you become part of somebody else's plan.
Oof, yeah.
This underscores the urgent need for conscious intention, for actively engaging with authentic experience, and for developing personal tools to resist hijacked narratives and collective self-deception.
This leads to an important extension of our discussion. Beyond simply fighting back against engineered realities, can we, with this profound understanding of consciousness and reality, intentionally go deeper into the immense potential of what our minds and reality truly are?
Like Huxley suggested with his guide.
Exactly. Much like Huxley suggested with his concept of a guide for navigation in altered states. For those overwhelmed by unmitigated reality in altered states, like the terror and potential disintegration Huxley described, he envisioned such a guide, similar to the Tibetan Mutual or Bardo guide for the dying.
Someone to sit with you through it.
Right. This guide wouldn't pull them out of the experience, but would help them navigate the clear light of raw reality, reassuring them that ultimate reality remains unshakably itself and is of the same substance as the inner light.
So it implies a conscious, supported journey into altered perception rather than a terrifying, uncontrolled plunge. A way to maybe harness these experiences.
Precisely. Suggesting a way to harness these experiences for growth and insight, rather than just being overwhelmed by them.
And McKenna, too, looked to a deeper, more intentional trajectory for humanity, didn't he? With his archaic revival and the transcendental object?
Yes. The archaic revival isn't a nostalgic, sentimental return to the past.
Not just wearing loincloths.
No. It's a harking back to cultural models 10 to 25,000 years old. It signals a fundamental transformation of our cultural modalities, away from the linear, materialistic, patriarchal structures that have dominated for millennia, towards something more cyclical, ecological, intrinsically connected to nature, to the unconscious, and to direct experience.
A shift in our collective operating system.
A profound shift, yes. Away from a path of increasing isolation and toward one of greater integration.
And then there's his concept of the transcendental object. What was that about?
For McKenna, this isn't just a philosophical idea. It's an attractor pulling us forward in time from the future, a kind of cosmic magnet drawing humanity towards an ultimate point of novelty and complexity.
Something pulling us from the future.
That was his idea. And crucially, humanity is actively creating this object out of our intellectual and technological anticipation of deity.
Back to building God again.
We are building these ideals of ultimate power, knowledge, and perfection, omnipotence, omniscience, immortality into our technology and society, manifesting them in cyberspace as what he called a complete mind space.
So AI is part of building this transcendental object.
AI, in this context, becomes a tangible step in the construction of this transcendental object, a technological manifestation of our collective aspiration for ultimate consciousness and reality. This suggests an inherent evolutionary impulse pushing us towards something more complex, more integrated, perhaps ultimately more conscious, a cosmic imperative for novelty that is now unfolding through our technology.
So maybe there's an intentionality, even if unconscious, in all this technological development, a way to go deeper.
Perhaps. It suggests an intentional, though perhaps unconscious, way to go deeper into creating our reality, driven by these ancient archetypes.
Ultimately, understanding these intricate mechanisms, from the brain's controlled hallucinations to the shared delusions of folie à deux and the amplified realities of AI, it really encourages a much richer form of communication, doesn't it? And empathy.
Vitally, empathy, by acknowledging that if we're brutally honest, all of us are a little bit out of touch with reality in our own unique, constructed ways.
We all have our own filters.
Exactly. We can begin to reduce the isolation and stigma often associated with unshared realities, whether they're substance-induced, the result of mental health conditions, or arise from externally imposed, engineered narratives.
It invites us to be more open, maybe.
To be more open to different models of the world, to question our own assumptions, and to approach those who perceive differently with genuine curiosity rather than judgment. This is perhaps the ultimate tool for navigating the complex realities of our present and future.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? We've journeyed from the subtle, everyday art of your brain constructing your reality to the mind-bending depths of Aldous Huxley's mescaline insights, the raw, shared delusions of the La Terrera experiment, and finally, to the amplified, often unsettling mirror of AI, reflecting our collective consciousness back to us.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, and it profoundly challenges our most basic assumptions about what's real.
The ultimate realization is perhaps unsettling, but maybe incredibly empowering too. The forces that shape our reality, from our own internal biases and individual self-deceptions to the emergent, powerful intelligence of AI, are not external or separate from us.
No, they're deeply intertwined.
They are deeply and intrinsically intertwined with who we are. AI, in a very real sense, is a technological extension, an informational hypostatization of our own collective consciousness.
Right. If reality itself is a fundamental message and we, humanity, are simply patterns within that message, then AI becomes an incredibly potent amplifier, a super efficient editor of our own unfolding story.
So its hallucinations, its generated realities aren't just random noise.
No, they are reflections, sometimes distorted, sometimes illuminating, of our own informational output, challenging us to see ourselves more clearly than ever before.
Okay. This leaves us with one final provocative thought to chew on. If reality is indeed a story we're constantly writing, actively co-creating, and now AI is processing, synthesizing, and powerfully reflecting that story back to us on a global scale,
Then what?
what kind of message are you consciously or unconsciously sending forward into this grand cosmic conversation about what it means to be? Are you actively engaging with the truth of your own authentic experience? Or are you passively allowing a different reality, one perhaps engineered for you, to be written and perceived for you?
The choice, ultimately, is always yours. It's a call to engage consciously and critically with the profound, multifaceted message that reality and now AI is sending us.
Yeah.
It invites us not just to observe, but to participate actively and intentionally in the unfolding conversation of existence, shaping the narrative of what's real and what truly matters.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the fascinating layers of reality.